We start this evening with two very important issues every single American should care about because it's going to affect the climate and it's going to affect our economy in the long run. The Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Keystone XL pipeline. No, they are not old, tired issues. They are staring this country right in the face. Now, we've devoted extensive coverage on this show to both of these issues. I traveled to Nebraska and met with the landowners who would have the Keystone XL pipeline running right through their land. And eminent domain, of course, is a big issue there right now. I heard their concerns about property rights and environmental issues. They don't want a huge pipe filled with poison running through their water supply or on top of it, and that is a big risk. I've also traveled around the country listening to Americans on the Trans-Pacific Partnership and who would be affected. I visited Lorain, Ohio, and heard firsthand stories of jobs being lost because of bad free trade agreements that this country has embarked on. These are hugely important issues that unions and environmental groups deeply care about that definitely lean left into the Democrats. Meanwhile, the Democratic frontrunner for president is refusing to take a position on both of these issues. On Tuesday, Hillary Clinton gave this non-answer on the Keystone XL pipeline.
As president, would you sign a bill, yes or no, please, in favor of allowing the Keystone XL pipeline?
Well, as you know, I was the Secretary of State who started that process. I was the one who put into place the investigation. I have now passed it off as obvious, because I'm no longer there, to Secretary Kerry. This is President Obama's decision, and I am not going to second guess him because I was in a position to set this in motion, and I do not think that would be the right thing to do. So I want to wait and see what he and Secretary Kerry decide. If it's undecided when I become president, I will answer your question.
A short time later, Clinton doubled down on her refusal to answer the question.
I was involved in this process, and my assessment is that it is not appropriate nor fair for me to prejudge in a public arena what Secretary Kerry and President Obama eventually have to decide. And therefore, I will not do it. And I am sorry if people want me to. I've been very clear. I will not express an opinion until they have made a decision, and then I will do so.
That is such a dodge. Just a day after promising not to answer the question, Clinton sent out a tweet saying this: "We're not going back to denying climate change." If you ask most of these Republican candidates about that, they'll say, "Sorry, I'm not a scientist. Look, I'm not a scientist either. I'm just a grandmother with two eyes and a brain." She's also one of the most powerful political figures in this country, and people deserve an answer, not just a grandmother. It's easy to attack Republicans on climate change. I believe if Clinton wants to be serious about climate change, she has to take a stand on the Keystone XL pipeline because of what's going to be in it. Tar sands oil. Then we have the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Clinton, again, is refusing to take a position on the TPP. She's using the same excuse for not taking a stand on Keystone.
If you look at both the trade agreement and the Keystone decision, I will certainly express my opinion when there is something to express an opinion about. Right now, anybody who's talking about this really has to be shooting in the dark because we don't know what's either going to be in the trade agreement, and my hope is that my concerns that have been made both publicly and privately to the administration will certainly affect how this trade agreement is written and agreed to. And similarly, on Keystone, it is likely to be decided in this administration. But if it's not, I will have responsibility. And, you know, I don't want to make too much of this because I'm very clear and have been consistently that I do not think it appropriate for me to comment on something that I had official responsibilities for until it is completed, and that I might have official responsibilities for again. So that's where I stand.
Okay, she's got that answer down pretty good. But again, I think it's a political dodge. There's no law anywhere that says that the person running for president can't comment on any issue under the sun. It's not going to put any more pressure on President Obama. It's not going to put any more pressure on Secretary of State John Kerry, who works for the president. If Hillary Clinton, I think, who wants to be the next president of the United States, she needs to step out and she needs to come clean and needs to answer on these two very important issues. They affect climate change, the environment, and the outsourcing of American jobs, which, of course, the Republicans really don't seem to care about. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question: will Hillary Clinton's refusal to take a position on the TPP and Keystone XL hurt her in the long run? Go to pulse.msnbc.com/ed to cast your vote. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. For more, let me bring in Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, who is running for president. Senator, good to have you with us tonight. You have reacted to her refusal to give an answer on Keystone. Secretary Clinton has come back and said that bringing this up is shooting in the dark. What's your response to that?
No, I strongly disagree. I mean, we know exactly where the oil is coming from. It's tar sands oil. The issue here is, Ed, if we are serious about combating climate change, which the scientists tell us is the major environmental crisis facing our planet, we have got to do everything that we can to prevent the excavation and transportation of some of the dirtiest fossil fuel on Earth. I think this Keystone pipeline idea is a terrible idea. I'm against it. And frankly, I think Secretary Clinton should be speaking out on this issue.
Well, we've got a patent answer from the candidate Clinton. She says that because she was Secretary of State, it's not appropriate for her to comment on these two major issues. What's your reaction to that? Is that political cover, or is there merit to that answer, as you say?
No, I don't think there is merit to that answer. She's a candidate for President of the United States. Climate change is one of the great issues that all of us have got to deal with, and I think the people are entitled to know her opinion on the issue.
It is true that she did start the study on this, which was later debunked because there were some conflict of interests going on, and then the State Department had to come back and do another one. So they're not operating under the same investigation that they were under her watch as Secretary of State. Does that have merit?
No, I don't think it does. They did studies, and that's fine, when she was Secretary of State. We can argue about the merits or not merits of it, and I share the concerns of many people about some of those studies. But the point is, she is not Secretary of State now. She's a candidate for President of the United States. This is an enormously important issue. You could say you're for it, you could say you're against it, but I think you should have an opinion on that issue.
Senator, do you think that her non-committal on these two issues is going to help your campaign because you've been so crystal clear on it?
Well, you know, I think, Ed, that people are willing to say, well, I disagree with somebody, but I think there is a feeling that people should at least have an opinion on the most important trade agreement ever entered into by the United States of America. I happen to think TPP is the continuation of disastrous trade policies which have cost us millions of jobs. I'm against it. Secretary should have a position on it. I think that the Keystone pipeline is excavating and transporting some of the dirtiest fuel on Earth. I think if we are serious about addressing climate change, the Secretary should have an opinion on that as well.
Well, if she is for doing something about climate change, what difference does it make who the president is now or what's decisions on his desk? I guess my question is her loyalty to the climate and the future of the country, or to the president of the United States who hasn't made a decision? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think it's a question of the president of the United States either, or loyalty. It's not a question of loyalty. She is a candidate. You can agree with the president. You can disagree with the president. But when you're running for office, and these are two of the monumental issues that we're facing, I think it is obligatory for you to speak out and tell the American people what your view is.
All right. All of the unions, and I mean not some, all of them in this country are against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Yet Secretary Clinton refuses to take a position on that. What's the holdup here as you see it? What would be the holdup? The deal is about 99% done. They're down to a couple of small issues when it comes to the Canadians and the dairy products and how much they have to accept. This deal, everybody I talk to, is just about there. her refusal to give a position. Is this an opening for you? I mean, is this something that your campaign is going to highlight?
Well, look, Ed, I think what the American people want is to know your views on the important issues. And of course, we have and will highlight this. Look, again, I think, and every trade union in America, as you've just indicated, understands that our trade policies have been disastrous. They have cost us millions of jobs. They're forcing American workers to compete against people who make pennies an hour. We've lost 60,000 factories since 2001. And I think what the American people are saying, we need a new trade direction. We need corporate America to start investing in this country, creating jobs in this country rather than abroad. That's my view. The secretary can agree, she can disagree. But I think you got to have a position on that issue, on Keystone. You can't quite not, have a clear stated position.
Senator, there's quite a debate going on in Congress right now about the Iranian nuclear deal that the president obviously wants to see the Congress approve. The majority of Americans, a slight majority of Americans, say that the Congress should not approve it. What's your position on this, and what happens if the Congress does not approve this? Where does this leave us with Iran, in your opinion?
Well, I think the last part of your question is the $64 question here, Ed. I have not made a definitive statement on my view. I am leaning towards supporting the agreement based on what I know. I've got some meetings coming up in the next week which will provide some important answers to me. I applaud the president and I applaud Secretary Kerry for doing everything they can to try to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and you do that without a war. A war would be a terrible, terrible thing. And I got to tell you, Ed, I get very nervous hearing some of my Republican friends apparently not knowing what the war in Afghanistan was about, what the war in Iraq was about, and are talking rather blithely about, oh, well, maybe we'll have to go to war against Iran. I worry about that very, very much. So I am leaning towards supporting the agreement. There are questions that I still have that I want to see answered.
And what is your number one question?
Well, my number one question is whether or not this agreement, in fact, is verifiable, whether, in fact, Iran is going to do what they say they will do.
Okay. Senator, tell us about your grassroots gatherings tonight. I understand it's something that is almost of a record proportion. What's going on tonight?
Well, Ed, it is. I think it's kind of unprecedented. Tonight at about 7 o'clock, we are going to be holding some 3,000 organizational meetings. We think about 100,000 people have signed up, and the purpose of this meeting is to help people get deeply involved in the campaign at a grassroots level. I think we're going to win this thing if we can put together a strong grassroots movement. Tonight is an important first step in putting that movement together.
How encouraged are you by the recent polling? You have not taken a step back since this whole thing started.
Now, we're feeling pretty good, and what I'm especially feeling good about is the matchups with Republicans. A lot of people say, well, Bernie Sanders, good ideas, nice guy, but he can't defeat Republicans. Well, it turns out that we were ahead in a recent CNN poll of both Scott Walker, Donald Trump, and Jeb Bush. So, I think we're running strong against the Republicans. I think we can defeat them. And I think our job now is to win the primary and caucus process.
Senator Bernie Sanders, best of luck to you. Good to have you with us tonight here on The Ed Show. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.